Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of Moohead Radio. I think I'm going to have two co-hosts at some point today, but God only knows where the female one is. But Jim Hammer is with me. How you doing, Jim?
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Beautiful day today.
You got the Under Armour shirt on.
Yeah, I got the red. I was going to go with the Indian shirt, but it doesn't, kind of bunches up in the weird spot while I'm sitting in this chair. So I thought, But I did go with the old school 70s hat. So.
Okay, I'm going to guess here. Under Armour 3X.
This is actually a 2. So,
okay.
Yeah, it fits pretty big. So I'm kind of impressed.
That's one thing I liked about those shirts. I also wear these Adidas, the Climalite shirts, and, it's amazing how certain shirts, when you're a big guy, it's like Nike shirts, no fucking way, a Nike shirt, it's just cut off my circulation. And it's like,
and my belly's sticking out from the bottom of it, and it's
oh yeah, it doesn't have a long tail on it. Yeah, and then like the Ralph Lauren polo dress shirts in what they call an XXL, which is not a 2X, it's an XXL. They size them differently. Fits me perfectly. If you put me in a 2X, it's like a shopping bag around me. It's like a Glad bag. So it's hard to find a proper fit, but it's.
My best shirt story was the time when I had a volleyball match, and I had to truck it up to a match clear up in Dublin. Was the furthest school away, Dublin Jerome, and I got out, I hustled out, I got early, and I'm out on my scooter, and I hustle my way all the way up there, and I'm taking the back roads and get all the way up to where I need to be, and I get into my bag, and I got my shoes, and I don't have my shirt. So I call my partner. My partner basically wears a medium. And I'm like, okay, this is not going to go well. So he gets there, and I call him up. I said, you said you had that extra shirt in your car. You said it was kind of big on you. He goes, oh yeah. I said, you wouldn't happen to have it with you this time? He goes, oh yeah, I got it. I said, well, is it like a reasonable size? I'm like, yeah, go ahead for it. So we get it on there, and it was pretty much the entire scene of where David Spade and Chris Farley are doing the fat guy in a little coat thing.
Right,
so
right.
If I try to give an out signal where it was supposed to be, I knew the back was just going to rip right out. So it was just like, everything was like, here's the call. So fortunately, no one was there. It was two lousy teams, and it worked out pretty good. So, but yeah, I was great for it. Look, who's here.
Yeah, Michelle is in our midst, and today is an opportunity to talk about a number of things. The Browns being first and foremost, that's always at the top of the list. Of course, there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up before we actually talked about the game. Armonte Bryant is a thing of the past, like all the other attempted addled and diseased reclamation projects that the Browns have attempted. And anyone named Bryant, anyone who had a relative named Bryant, ends up gone. And Armonte, as soon as he went off the PED suspension list, got shit canned by the Browns. Austin Reiter, he'll tell his kids that he actually did a good job for almost 4 quarters, and his season's over with an ACL tear. It's like,
Daddy, does that mean we're gonna go back to not eating again?
Shut the fuck up, Junior. So Austin Reiter is gone.
I think when you're injured, I think you get paid. So he's sitting there living the fat life.
We're gonna eat. The sun's coming out tomorrow. Hey, Sandy.
Yeah. Unreal. Yeah. So only the Browns can figure out a way to lose like this and keep losing people. I mean, the center position, you knew the second that Alex Mack was gone that the Browns would go through 14 centers. It just seems to work that way. I want to correct a mistake that I made yesterday. And I just want to make people aware that I do make them. I don't make them that often. But when I do, I own up to them, unlike many other broadcasters. If you remember, during the course of the game, Duke Johnson fumbled the football. And Terrell Pryor was seen yelling at the coaches on the sideline and waving his arms and acting up. And I criticized him because I thought that, like the week before, when he was obviously kind of really crushed when the game turned the previous week on the missed field goal, I thought that he was misbehaving, but I have to apologize to Terrell Pryor because I didn't realize when I was watching the game, because of the camera work in the game, that the Duke Johnson fumble was a contested recovery. And that, in fact, the replays show that Duke Johnson recovered and walked out of the pack with the ball in his hands while people continued to scrum on the ground. And now I'm going to trump this, some ignorant female referee who has no fucking business being out on a field full of big men is staring at the ground with two behemoths grabbing each other like a sumo porn film, and there was no football underneath them. Duke Johnson was literally 3 yards away holding the ball up saying, hey, I got it over here, and they end up giving the ball to the Redskins. That's what Terrell Pryor was cursing about. He was not upset at the player or upset with the fact that he hadn't gotten the ball that half. It was anger toward the officials. So I was wrong about that. My apologies.
You owe him a sympathy card.
I do.
I'm thinking, yeah, or at least something. Maybe one of those
he's like
those e-cards, you know. That, I mean, you don't have to go like full out and like spend money or anything. Just the e-card.
No, the man's Black Trump. He doesn't pay taxes. I don't have to send him anything. Come on. That would be a great idea. Black Trump. What would Black Trump be? That would be amazing. Would he still hate Hispanics? It's a good question. 7 minutes past the hour of 6. You've got to tune to Mr. Moohead, just poking fun at politics and sports on Moohead Radio with Jim Hammer and with Michelle. Now we can, after I've my mea culpa, we can talk about the game. Michelle, you're first today. What do you take away on this Monday from having watched the game yesterday? Besides, and I don't want to talk about your Chargers because they suck. Their coach knows they suck. They blow leads. They blow donkey dicks. Superchargers my ass. They're like a 1974 Charger that doesn't even start or finish. Okay, so what did you think about the Browns?
I think there are a lot of positives and negatives to take away from this game. I think overall it shows how deep to the core the incompetence has been in this team for so long, with not only the lack of depth in players, but people don't seem to know what the hell is going on more than half the time. So while they're excelling in some points and trying to get better in some places, they're failing miserably in others. So I can take away a lot of positive things. Like I could pick out Terrell Pryor. I could say Cody Kessler, he wasn't horrible. He actually performed pretty well. He stuck with what he knew. They worked something out that he could handle. And I mean, they went with a run game, which was smart, and they worked with what he could use. They kept him in quarterback the whole time. There was no tricks. There was no wildcats there. They kept Pryor in his own position, and they kept Kessler in at quarterback. And that's how you have to have a team. You have to have one solid leader behind your center. And we need to, because we don't have anybody solid at center. There are a lot of positives and a lot of negatives about this game. And it was completely winnable, and the Duke Johnson fumble is absolutely unacceptable, and that stupid bitch should be fired. Because she has no business being out there, let's be honest. What did she see that looked like a football to her is what I want to know. What did she see that looks like a football under there that she actually
couldn't find her girlfriend's strap on for... That's not, no. I'm sorry. That's just not acceptable. I've been watching too many debates. I'm sorry.
Well, I can't see how a man would want to be with someone like her, so.
Ooh, I didn't even see what she looked like because she just looked like a really malnourished zebra. So
she looked like a stupid bitch who shouldn't be on the field, and that's exactly what she was.
Boy, this is like woman on woman hate. Now, Jim.
Scratch your eyeballs out, bitch.
You get the same feeling I do, Jim, that what we're witnessing is not solely a football season, but it's kind of like a boat race in which half of it is bailing water out of the boat, and then the rest is trying to get to the finish line?
It's like, as Luke Rosa Boulevard turns. I mean, it's, my good thing to bring out of it actually was the opposite of the bad thing from last week. Is our boy Cody Parkey. And one of the things that was brought up on the broadcast, and God, I hate listening to those guys, but they actually brought this up, was going into last week's game against Miami, Parkey had not even had one opportunity to practice with his team, with his field goal unit, the snapper, the holder, not even one chance until that morning of that game. Now, whose fault is that? I don't know. You could have figured there's got to be a flight to Cleveland from somewhere. But other than that, that was a big thing. But dude was money on his two kicks, the kicks that he made. So I felt pretty good about watching that. So that was a good takeaway that I had from it. And he did actually make the Pro Bowl a couple years ago, which is something I read. So that was pretty nice. The points that Michelle made there, obviously, Pryor looked really solid in the first half. Put on a clinic with Norman. Is that me? Is that all that noise?
No, that's Michelle because she doesn't have any headset on.
Okay, I was wondering if that was mine. Don't
look around. It's you. Oh, she does have headset on.
Pay enough. Yes, I have a headset on.
I don't know what it is then. We're getting a little bit of a. You're getting that too.
It sounds like Tony the Calf and his Cheetos is what it sounds like.
Yeah, what were you gonna do? I thought Jim was gonna flash us there.
No,
for a minute. I thought to my stomach. Because
I have a fan on in the room because it's actually nice out. I thought maybe that's what it was. It was the fan blowing on there, and it could very well be. Now I see.
Yeah, condenser.
There you go. Like so I don't hear. But anyway,
but that was it too. Is that good?
Oh yeah. Okay, you can sit now. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Well, never mind. I was going to go somewhere, but no.
No, you can't go there now. I mean, you've just totally lost track.
Yeah. All right.
Testosterone is a problem. It's a problem for us. What can I tell you?
Yeah. All right. So, but anyway, there was some good things to be said. Obviously, the running game looks strong. Who knows what the heck it's going to be next week? They got Ryder off the practice squad from another team, Jacksonville, actually, I think. And, you're thinking Jacksonville wouldn't have depth, but who knows? Maybe they can find somebody else on another practice squad somewhere to bring in. But, he certainly made the line look better. Right now they're talking about just using Greco again. I don't know that that's the answer. I don't know how long it's going to be before Bailey gets back. So, there's quite a few things that got me worried.
I don't think Bailey's coming back. I think he's going to be another one of those guys who they're just going to cut loose because he's a problem. I think all of these people who are problem children, I think the Browns are just saying, something, it's hard enough for us to get over what these previous regimes have done. We're just not going to take on any more water. We're trying to bail as fast as we can. But these people, if they can't comport themselves, next, we just kind of move on. Here's your question, Michelle. I love doing the show this way because I can ask questions instead of just forwarding opinions or positing opinions. It was the SAT word. Michelle, are the Cleveland Browns the worst team in the NFL? Here's the reason I'm asking. Cleveland.com is claiming they're not, despite having the worst record. Are they or aren't they?
They really are. From the inside out. They are the worst managed, worst run football team in the entire league. They have been since they've been reincarnated. They've been the joke of the NFL, and everybody knows that we can't keep a head coach, we can't keep a quarterback, so we're a joke. There's no continuity in this team. There hasn't been in the 20 years that it's been back. So, yeah, they are the worst team in the NFL. They have a long way to go before they're even remotely considered contenders, before they're even considered the tiniest little division threat. It's going to be a long, long time. And I don't see it happening because there's no continuity. I don't know if they're going to Hugh Jackson beyond 2 years. They could fire everybody at the end of the year. They could go and draft some other quarterback that you've never heard of and let him take over a team. I mean, what's to say that anything's changing the pattern that we've been looking at for the last 20 years?
Now, Jim, here's what it says in the article. It says the Browns have lost games they played well enough to win, which in a season like this is frankly more productive than winning games they should have lost. They probably have earned a 2-2 record, but they've been handed their first 0-4 start since 2012. Do you really think this team has earned a 2-2 record?
No, the depth of the team does not allow it to finish games, and that's part of the reason. They should have probably won the Miami game. They should have got that field goal, and they should have got in. That one, I would say, they're going to luck themselves into a couple of wins just because that's the way the National Football League is. There's going to be teams that they're not going to do. They'll have a good matchup against. This week is not going to be one of them. In any sense of the imagination. In fact, I'm wondering if they could put up 50 points or more on New England at this point in time. I think I would take whatever it is or the over for New England themselves because I know they scored 0. They're going to make it up this week and bring their average back up. But they are the only 0-4 team in the league. They've played better than their record shows, but moral victories, doesn't help you out. It's not. But you know what? It's better that they're not a playoff team. Honestly, it's better that they don't get our hopes up and that we win these games. And I think that's something the article actually mentioned as well. We get all excited, and you're like, "Oh, we're 3-1, and here we go, and here it comes again," only to have our hearts broken as usual and go on the 7-game losing streak. So,
and can't even put the words playoffs in the same sentence with the Browns because they'll never be playoff contenders. They will not even come close to anything wild card division for a long, long time. The Cleveland Browns are literally like your shitty fantasy football team that every week your top player gets fucking hurt and you're like, oh, I got to sift through the waivers and try to find somebody to pick up the slack. That's exactly what the Browns are. They're a real life shitty fantasy football team.
No, I can't disagree with that. Now what everybody's going to get from me rather than analysis is a prognostication. And now we'll have Bill Belichick speaking to you about next week's game. I think that we're really looking at the Browns as being type of team that can be very dangerous. They've proven that they've almost won every week they're out there. They've been in every game they've been in, and Jamar Taylor's intercepted 2 passes in the last 2 games. We're really afraid to target him. Isaiah Crowell is proven to be a big time running back. It's going to be very difficult for us to stop, and we are, after all, bringing back a quarterback who's been sitting and doing nothing for 4 weeks, and that's always difficult. And Cody Kessler has proven to me, at least, maybe not proven it to other people. But we've looked at the films that we think that he wears a little shirt underneath his uniform that has a big S on it, and that he steps out of phone booths. And I think that the kicker, Parkey, he had, it wasn't his fault that he missed the 1 field goal. But he kicked 51-yard field goal. That would have been good from at least 78 yards. I saw it myself on the film, and we can't put them anywhere within 78 yards of the goalpost, or else they're going to get 3 points out of it. And their pass rush, which is really underestimated. I really think that the Cleveland Browns are a very fine football team, and I think that we're going to have our hands full in trying to compete with them.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. It was a little more audible than Belichick would have said, and you said a lot more nice things than he probably would have. But yeah, that was a pretty good question.
I want to make sure that did I leave any bulletin board fodder behind? I hope I didn't do that. And
you didn't drop enough cliches in there. Yeah, we're on to Cleveland.
We made a mistake.
You really should put on a hoodie as well.
We made a mistake. We made a mistake on not signing Terrell Pryor. He's a great human being, great humanitarian, and I think that he builds schools for children in foreign countries, and I can't say enough about him. Bill Belichick, ladies and gentlemen, the king of puffery. I mean, he could be playing St. Francis of Assisi's blind girls football team, and he would say, well, they may be blind, but the fact of the matter is that even a blind pig finds an acorn once in a while. We can't lay back just saying they're blind. They can't see which way they're running. They can't see who has the ball. We can't use those excuses. We have to come out and play our game. Seriously. Makes you wonder how it is possible that I fuck so many women in addition to my wife. Wonder, doesn't it? Yeah. They don't know if they're pleasing me or not. And I think that's the key that I hold over them, is that, they want to know if they're pleasing me, and this is what I look like when I'm having an orgasm. This is what I look like when I'm eating dinner. And, even at the end of Old Yeller, this is what I look like. And,
Did he really cheat on his wife with a bunch of chicks?
Oh my God, Belichick, yes, but he was with the New York Jets. Yeah.
Oh, he's so gross.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that I just kind of this is the way I go through my life. And I remember one time a car hit me, and I got up and I just looked at the guy and I said, "Your car hit me," and he couldn't tell if I was hurt or not. I mean, this is just the way I am, and it's just. Wait a minute.
Here's the Bill Belichick lie detector test. Just the perfect straight line going across.
I knew nothing about the dead body that was found in our practice facility, and the fact that it was buried under the ground and had a Cleveland Browns playbook in its hand. It's nothing that we did. It's nothing that we had anything to do with. And we don't pump up footballs around here. We don't put cameras and spy on people. We don't do things like that.
Yeah, I'm looking to find that job. Where can I get that camera job? Yeah, just kind of go ahead and play some stuff.
The only thing that I could think of that would be worse than a Bill Belichick hour of internet radio would be a Bill Belichick tandem with Gronk.
And you could have Shaq on the side there, Oh, I'm a sailor. Or yeah, I think that they have the ability to move along, and they play a very good game. Yep. Well,
the better one is Bill Walton. Bill Walton. I mean, you don't see him anymore. It's like Jeepers Creepers. I mean, it's like what? I mean,
First off, you have to have all that stuff in your mouth like that. It's like there's something in there like a lozenge, but you can't really see it. It's there, but it's not there. Yeah. So
I mean, he sounds like a sober Harry Carey. That's what he sounds like. Because Harry Carey, it's like he's choking. Harry Carey is like, but yeah, there's something about, and the way he would just say things, it would be like, he's lacking for oxygen. He would just make these stupid, it's like, okay, we know your pedigree, you house the Symbionese Liberation Army. Move on. Move on, Bill. All right, 23 minutes past the hour of 6. The Browns, Bing Bong, yeah, Bub Radio. Here's the next question for Jim. Will the Browns be 0-9? And let me at least, explain that, we're going up against some tough games in the coming weeks. And it could well be, if you look at who we're playing, we've got New England at Tennessee, at Cincinnati,
Loss.
New York Jets, and the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, do you think Tennessee's the only chance we might have?
Maybe. I can't see beating any of those other teams. Definitely not. And it doesn't get any better after that, because you got 2 times at Pittsburgh along with Baltimore again. There's a lot of losses, non-winnable games on that schedule. So I can't imagine them getting past anybody. Tennessee would be the one chance, but you know what? That's going to be the one week that they go totally apeshit crazy and decide to have the best game of their lives. Kind of like, what happened with Washington yesterday with the running back having this career game of all time.
Yeah, but we're going to need a Julio Jones 300-yard reception game. Something fluky would have to happen for us to win any of these games, maybe except for the Tennessee game. But you get the feeling that Tennessee is going to come in real confident in that game being at home. I mean, remember, we're playing New England at home, but we have no home field advantage against that team. And then we're on the road at Tennessee and Cincinnati. And I'll tell you something before you say something, Michelle. I think that Cody Kessler, if he were coached up with better wide receivers, might be an Andy Dalton type quarterback. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Do you think the Browns will be 0-9?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. They have no secondary. And by the time they, run out the first half and they blow it all up and they give everything they've got, they have no defense in the second half. There's no way that we're going to stand a chance against Pittsburgh or Cincinnati. You already saw what Baltimore did. New England's going to destroy us. There's nobody stacking this team up that's going to prevent any of those offenses from destroying us.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
They could end up 0-11. I'm looking at the schedule.
Yeah.
Good
yeah, with Dallas coming up and then Baltimore again. Yeah.
16. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is really easy to go 0-11. Maybe
Ezekiel Elliott, not Joe Hayden.
Yeah, it's going to be I'm afraid it's going to be ugly. Really, I'm not a big Andy Dalton fan, but obviously AJ Green's a good receiver. He's got some really good receivers. But I don't consider Andy Dalton's arm to be really big time. He's had no success when he gets into the playoffs. If the Cleveland Browns, let's do it this way. We're going to have let's pretend. This is what I call the raspberries segment.
Do we get to wear hats and stuff here? Can we wear funny hats? No? Okay, never mind.
All
right.
No, it was an Eric Carmen Raspberries reference. Let's pretend.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The song. Cleveland, the home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But do you think that how good could Cody Kessler's record be if he had a Terrell Pryor playing the way he is, a Josh Gordon who was playing the way he had, and a young rookie like Corey Coleman? And Isaiah Crowell running the football well, and assuming that he had an offensive line like Andy Dalton has that has been cohesive, what kind of a record, Michelle, do you think that Cody Kessler could bring to Cleveland?
He looked a lot more comfortable out there yesterday than he did the week before. He looked like he was more confident in his team. So you can tell that he's been practicing with them and he's been taking the helm as a leader because everybody kind of turned to him. He seemed a little more composed. When he was, he actually looked downfield yesterday. Like he was actually looking for receivers. He actually knew where he was going. Last week he was nothing but a panic machine. So seeing him set in there and kind of relaxed and yet leading the team, because Peasy isn't supposed to lead the team. Even though he's the morale leader right now, he's not the leader of the team. Your quarterback should lead your team. So he looked pretty good. He's got capabilities.
What do you think? Do you think he could be a 9-7 quarterback?
I think he could. I think he would be better than any quarterback we've had in the last 5 years. I think he would outshine Brian Hoyer, Charlie Whitehurst. Who else did we freaking have last year? Oh my God, who's the one that got hurt before McCown got hurt? I can't even remember anymore.
No, I think we've all kind of put it out of our minds.
Yeah.
What do you?
I think he will. I think he could be good. I don't think he'll have the strength that Dalton has, and Dalton's not even considered elite. But I think he could be decent because he's got Hugh. And if there's any continuity and if there's any kind of teaching going on, then why wouldn't he? If it's all about Hugh and if Hugh is the real reason Andy Dalton is so great, there's no reason he can't mold Cody Kessler because he absolutely looks like he's willing to learn and work hard.
Jim, I've seen guys like Kitna be 9-7 quarterbacks in the NFL if they had a decent team surrounding them. What do you think Kessler could do?
5 words. Trent Green won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
With the right people around you, if you don't screw up, you can go a long way.
So you see him maybe.
I think he's a very cerebral guy. He certainly seems to understand progression and stuff. I think what Michelle saw last week was definitely that first week of being on the field and having it all, and we'll see what happens as it goes along. But this week he's going to see a defense that he hasn't really seen in what they do in New England, where they're coming from all kinds of different angles. When Pittsburgh comes, they're going to be doing the same thing. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens as this season goes along. There's a couple, I would say there was probably about 10 or so plays where Washington pretty much loaded up the box and he actually made some smart moves to either get rid of the ball, do whatever he needed to do for it. So, but not, there's a lot of guys can go 9-7. I mean, with the right tools.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I look at Kessler is he's going to have a lot of problems in the weeks to come. I mean, his tendency is to throw to his right side and to throw it short. The longest pass that he completed in yesterday's game was 13 yards. It cannot be that way. If you have an effective running game that can generate 150-plus yards, as it has the last 2 weeks, you have to have the ability with play action to take strikes and shots down the field. And if you don't have, and the problem with us is that we don't have receivers who can get down there. Let's be honest. I mean, I have a problem that I'm slowly but surely realizing that if Andrew Hawkins is getting into games and Peyton and Higgins are not, that's not a very good sign as far as our draft is concerned. Ricardo Lewis has broken through and has actually made it onto the field, but there has been no targeting of Rashard Higgins in the few snaps that he's played. And as far as I know, Peyton hasn't even hit the field. And if they can't do better than a midget who's old and had 16 concussions, then I question whether the haul that we got in wide receivers from this most recent draft is really worth a shit. Because these two guys should be playing. They're faster, they're bigger, and yet they're not playing.
Well, I mean, this was the dollar store version of buying wide receivers this year, where we just got a whole quantity rather than quality. And it's worrisome to figure out that they can't be getting, like you said, getting on the field in front of Hawkins. If it wasn't for TP doing such a great job, God only knows where we'd be. I mean, Travis Benjamin was nothing to was
he
not that.
The Chargers yesterday too. Fucking Travis Benjamin. Fucking asshole.
But it wasn't like we lost Julio Jones or Beckham or whatever. I mean, it wasn't like that. So it's just there's all these guys that couldn't catch the ball, too small, whatever the heck it is. They got all these big, tall guys that are supposedly fast. You got to think that some of them would get in there, and they're still all on the roster. It's not like they're sitting around. So, it's hard to figure out why they haven't got that.
The confusion for me, Jim, is that the understanding was that Higgins and Peyton were hands guys. They were possession receivers. The idea was that Rashard Higgins caught everything that was thrown his way, and that Peyton was much the same, and that's exactly what Andrew Hawkins would be, is a guy who kind of runs slants down the middle of the field or little flares out, and he catches a lot of balls. They're not for deep yardage. He's not going to have a lot of yards after catch, but he's going to catch what's thrown to him. And I'm really shocked that neither of these two rookies has even really been targeted during the course of this season, when they should have every advantage. The question that I'm wondering is, they're not playing. Can they even get off the line of scrimmage? Do they know how to run routes at this level? And have we wasted picks again on people who can't even do the most basic of things to help the team? Silence. Yeah, that means they agree.
Yeah,
that means they agree with me.
Yeah. What can we say? I mean, look at what you got going there. You just don't have if Hawkins is the guy that's getting off the line of scrimmage, as small as he is, and able to make play, you got to wonder why these guys can't do it. Now, keeping in mind that it takes 3 years or so to develop somebody. So as far as a wide receiver, in general. So, maybe that's part of the deal. I don't know.
But I was hoping that they would. The second we got rid of Taylor Gabriel and kept Hawkins, I said this was a Cincinnati favor, and I still feel it's the same way. But boy, if none of those two guys can break through above Hawkins, that's not a good thing, because Hawkins is one hit away from being carried out on a stretcher. We know that from previous situations. The next thing is the Browns secondary, which it actually is tertiary. That's going to change the designation to the Browns tertiary. I know that Kirk Cousins didn't have to throw in the second half because our defensive line were basically sitting around in lazy boys. But I mean, Buddy Calhoun and Jamar Taylor, and I mean, do we have, and even Joe Hayden, who I still say has lost half a step because he does get beat down the field. Do we have?
I think he's lost more than half a step. I think Hayden's lost way more than half a step.
I think he's lost his interest in playing as
yeah,
well. I mean, did you see his face after the game?
Yeah.
His face after, at the end of that game, he just looked like, somebody had taken his daughter away and bought her an ice cream cone and driven off with her in a car. I mean, he looked really.
He doesn't mind laughing and yucking it up when he's, out with an injury.
It would be different if he had a very specific skill set that would make people like them, be afraid of people like him.
He doesn't even turn around when they throw the ball anymore. He doesn't care what he does on the field. You can tell in the way that he plays. It's pathetic. I used to really like him too.
Do we even have a professional defender of the secondary, Jim?
Oh, and that Hayden's as close as you got. Williams was, but I mean, he's definitely lost steps as far as that's concerned. He can't stay on the field. So, they're just kind of doing it with smoke and mirrors back there at this point in time because you can see it. And not to mention the linebackers. Who are these freaking guys? I mean, they brought in a guy, Cameron Johnson this week, who got significant playing time. They just picked him up, Thursday? Something like that, Wednesday, Thursday? And all of a sudden he's playing in the game? I mean, obviously there's a long way to go on that side of the ball. And the defensive line does not scare anyone whatsoever. And, Ray Horton's whole defensive scheme is blitzing and bringing different packages in. He cannot do that with the defensive backfield they have.
You know what,
here's what.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say before, Jamie Meter, if you've been watching this, I found out that the difference between preseason and the regular season, and the answer is Jamie Meter, who somehow took a narcotic and made it through the preseason looking like a professional football player. And then he woke up from the narcotic and realized he was still in Ashland. Go ahead, Michelle.
I don't think that the secondary is completely lost. I really liked the way Jamar Taylor looked at corner, and I liked the way he looked last week too. And he had 2 sacks on Cousins, and he went out there with passion. He looks like he's playing for a position. He looks like he, loves the game and wants to defend at his position, which Joe Hayden, every time he's out there, he's just jogging behind whoever he's covering. And he doesn't even turn around to look. He doesn't pay attention to where anybody is. Once he gets to set sights on somebody, he's got tunnel vision. He doesn't pay attention to anything else that's going on around him. And you can tell that he's not in the game anymore.
What about Jordan Poyer? Jordan Poyer, I mean, that guy's got to be the poorest example of a safety I've ever seen. The 51-yard or the 50-yard pass interference penalty in which, again, Joe Hayden bit on a fake and the guy got behind him. I mean, Poyer was in perfect position to intercept the pass, and because he does not trust his technique or his skill, he just pushes the guy and just interferes with him blatantly. I mean, not paying attention, not looking where they're going. I don't know. The safeties are really, really weak. And so if anybody does get beat, it's not like we have a safety like your favorite guy, Michelle Felix, right?
Stop that. Can you blame him for having
honestly,
a crush on me? I'm adorable, okay?
hell, I have a crush on Felix Wright. What are you talking about? We get somebody like that back again. Good Lord.
Yeah, well, I mean, Michelle could have had him on her fantasy team. On her fantasy team.
I could have him right now if I wanted.
I know. It's a story, Jim, for another time. But she and I know what we're talking about. But no, but at least with him, you had a center fielder who could, do something. Safeties are an important commodity, and we don't have one. And it complicates mistakes that are made in the defensive backfield. It's a real problem for the Browns. And when they give up yardage on the run, then it's really hell. Because then they're just not going to be in the game. And what I'm afraid is that whatever film they're going to have from this past weekend's game, the New England Patriots and future teams are going to exploit the fact not only that Kessler doesn't throw downfield, but that the Browns' defensive line is susceptible to certain blocking schemes. And if this is the start of the give up 160 yards a week against the run club that we've seen from the Browns in the past, what I'm going to do is I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, and I'm going to have all my friends vote for Donald Trump to create an America where Ray Horton can't exist.
That's terrible.
If they start giving up 150 plus yards a week in rushing, I am so sick and tired of our defensive line laying down. And boy, we made average running back look absolutely sensational in yesterday's game. I mean, I don't know, a guy who doesn't.
Yeah, look at what they did to somebody who's just mediocre.
Yeah.
What are you going to do next week? You think that New England really has to study tape on us? You really think that they haven't had it figured out? They could figure it out watching 3 minutes of one quarter. All they're going to do, Cody Kessler cannot do what Tom Brady can do. We don't have the guys on the field that they do. It's going to be a bloodbath. But if Cody Kessler can hold his own against Tom Brady, then he will get a little bit more confident every time he goes out there, and we'll have somebody who's building up to be a leader rather than Johnny Manziel, who is just falling apart at the seams every day and getting worse and worse. But there's no way
One thing I can say about
because it's all been seen. Everything is completely predictable. You can tell when Crowell's going to run it. You can tell when they're going to pass it on second down. You can tell exactly what they're going to do. It's so boring.
Well, Kessler has a brain in his head. All right. I never felt that Manziel prepared. Johnny was to quarterback what Trump is to presidential debates. They're just not prepared. There are some people who like to wing it. Okay. And Johnny was one of those guys who liked to wing it. Kessler is the opposite of that. I think, Bakersfield, California says it all. Buck Owens country. This is where this guy's from. He is decorated as a high school and college quarterback, but you look at him, he is not a charismatic kind of flair-driven person. He overcame 3 different coaches at USC and still led them career-wise in passing because he was obviously able to pick up different offensive systems from different coaches. So he's obviously a fast study. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and he seems very balanced. He isn't the kind of guy who's going to come out and say stupid things or misbehave. He's a model citizen. He just doesn't have a strong arm. But I think that everything else that he has is there's no reason, if he stays healthy, why this guy can't have a nice career in the NFL, much in the way that McCown has had a very nice career in the NFL, made a lot of money, thrown for 13,000 yards in his career. I mean, there's no reason why a guy with a good head on his shoulders and who's balanced about what he does and what he's capable of doing and what he cannot do, there's no reason why he can't be an effective quarterback. The thing is that he probably will not be able to be a guy who makes that big turnaround play for you. The Ben Roethlisberger kind of quarterback who will break a tackle and just fling a ball 50 yards in the air with a flick of the wrist and find Antonio Brown down the sidelines or whatever. The back-breaking play is probably what I see missing in this young man. And that's hard when you're playing for a team that doesn't have a lot of weapons to begin with. I think he's going to be a good game manager. I don't think that he's going to be an interception machine. I think that he's going to be a guy who gets you into field position. You got to have a good kicker with a guy like this. I think that, if you give him time to throw, that he can throw 10 to 15 yards very accurately. I think if it goes outside of 20 yards, you got a problem.
You're right. One thing from this week's game that actually impressed me was the fact he only had one sack, and that was on that play where he was everybody was in on him, and there was no one open, and the announcer said, "Oh, throw the ball away." It's like, you know what? That was a good sack. But even behind this line, that was rather surprising. Now, I don't know how many other hits he took. I didn't see his stat on that, but that's the only thing that makes you worried about the young guy like that is, he's just going to get battered behind what we got up front right now. And while he's smart and wily beyond his experience, it's only a matter of time before the steamroller just trucks this guy,
Well, I mean, he's not escapable. Let's put it that way. Isaiah Crowell's the other side of the coin, a guy who has really looked bad last year and a guy who has looked sensational this year. Michelle, what do you find are the reasons in your mind why a guy like Crowell, even though he's playing behind a patchwork offensive line, why is he so much more effective this year?
I don't know. He looks a lot bigger to me, and he was kind of a powerhouse before. He's the kind of guy who can break his own tackles and get through a line. If he has to pull his leg out of somebody grabbing his ankle, he can still get off of it and still get 5 or 6 more yards out of a play before he gets tackled. He's just really strong. He's really solid. He knows how to hold on to the ball. I mean, how many guys do you, every time they get the ball in their hands, you're like, oh, God, please just hold on to the ball. Please just hold on to the ball. You can trust him with it to run around, and you can trust him to look at his options and find the best route for him if one gets plugged up. So he's a lot smarter, and he's a lot stronger than a lot of guys we've had before.
He almost broke another massive touchdown run, and a guy just clipped his foot, and he would have been gone again. He's already had an 85-yarder. I don't see Isaiah Crowell as a breakaway running back. I don't see him as a guy who's going to, rip off big time gains like that. But he's been amazingly consistent getting into the secondary, Jim. We didn't see this from him last year. Why?
Hugh Jackson. They're planning runs to go in the middle. They're pulling guards. They're pulling tackles. They're misdirectioning and then running the play back between the tackles. And I mean, that's something that he's done. I mean, you look what he did with Gio Bernard and the guys down in Cincinnati. He did it in Oakland when he was there as well. So I think part of it is the scheme that they're going through, and he's a downhill guy. He's got that forward lean to him. He bounces off of people, keeps kind of going, in that right direction. And actually Duke Johnson is not a bad compliment to him as well. I'd like to see him hold on to the ball.
Who does Crowell remind you of from NFL history? Who does Crowell remind you of?
For me, it's a lighter Kevin Mack, maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting because that you'd say that because I was talking to Mrs. Moo during the game, and I said, you always know that Crowell's got a big problem when he's running laterally, and that was really true of Kevin Mack as well. You never saw Kevin Mack running east-west. It was always north-south. And Crowell is much the same kind of guy. The thing about Crowell that I find interesting, he's kind of a low center of gravity runner for a pretty muscular guy. He, and I'm trying to remember who in NFL history really reminded me. I mean, he isn't like Marcus Allen was a glider. Some guys.
Matt Suey with the Bears used to do that kind of a.
Yeah, he's got this low center of gravity. His feet don't come off the ground real high. He's not a high stepper. He's a guy who just kind of bounces off people and always ends up going toward the goal line. No matter how you hit him, he seems to go forward no matter what. And I think that his running style is such that it keeps him low to the ground, his shoulder pads down. I think it's one of the reasons why he probably doesn't break off so many long runs, but that he's consistently hitting the line and pushing people backwards. And when he gets into the defensive secondary, it isn't that he tries to avoid contact either. He's a guy like Kevin Mack who just, and I was thinking when the Browns were running the ball down before Malcolm Johnson's hideous fumble, that another argument for Trump to be elected president, Malcolm Johnson, that the Browns were doing, do you remember the playoff game against the Houston Oilers in which the final drive was all Kevin Mack?
Yes, I was actually in a hotel room up in outside of Berea, and when Max scored the touchdown, I jumped up into the air and screamed like this, and it had one of those popcorn ceilings or whatever, and I totally ripped my hands, my knuckles, and ended up running into the snow outside and sticking my hands in the snow as I'm screaming and going, yeah, I can still remember this. It's like, my wife kind of knew that she was strange to who she was stuck marrying at that point. It was pretty bad.
But that's the kind of thing that I was saying to Mrs. Moohead, is like they're wearing down, and it really reminded me of how the Oilers just caved at the end of that game in Kevin Mack, and it didn't matter. Everybody knew that Kevin Mack was going to get the ball, and they were just powerless to do anything. Even Malcolm Johnson would have had a 40-yard gain off tackle on that handoff if he had held on to the football. And it was one more play until Crowell got a breather and came back in. They had given the ball to him. There was nobody who was going to stop that from happening. And it's really kind of too bad. One great quote before we finish up by talking about the Indians, because we need to talk about the Indians because obviously, because Jim's wearing the hat. The greatest tweet of all came from Deion Sanders, and I never thought I would say that. In between visiting hookers, he occasionally comes up with something intelligent. He said, the Browns are the best sparring partner in the NFL. They'll give you a good fight. And then, of course, the unspoken, but lose. I thought that's a really good analysis, that the Browns are a sparring partner. It's like, you're going to get a tough game. You got to go out and play hard. If you take your foot off the gas, they're going to come at you. But when you put your foot down, you'll beat them. But it'll at least be, they're not going to lay down. They're going to give you a fight. So I thought that was interesting. Michelle, I know you want to talk about the Indians. You begin, and I don't want to say something stupid here because, I'm not.
Don't, because I know what you're thinking, and you don't have to say it.
No, you don't know what I'm thinking, because I'm not prone to, optimism when it comes to the Indians organization. And I think that the rut they're in with their starting pitching is going to be difficult for them to overcome against, first you got a Boston team that can hit the tar out of the baseball. And then you got to figure it's going to be the Rangers if you get through Boston, and that they can pile up runs. And if your starting pitching isn't healthy, you got a problem. But it makes you wonder. It really makes you wonder when a guy with a broken hand, with a fracture in his hand, sees one pitch and hits it 416 feet. You really begin to wonder, if something's cooking here. What do you think?
I don't know. Don't start with that magic stuff. And it's just like 95.
Yeah, I know.
I thought you got,
but it was amazing.
I thought you got vaccinated from tribe fever.
No, I'm inoculated against Indian fever.
I think.
Yeah, I'm inoculated against it. Just go to local Walgreens.
I was talking to my dad about this because he's the one that raised me and got me into sports. I watched everything my entire life with my dad. So we always talk about it. And he's the one that has always been down on every team. The Browns will never win anything because they blew it in the 80s. The Indians will never be any good. They were never good when I was growing up. But they got good for a couple of years when I was a teenager, and then they were shit again for a long time. So nobody gets their hopes up. I swear to God, it's the LeBron effect. It's the championship effect from the Cavaliers winning. There is a sense of optimism with the people now, with the city, with fans who are all over the country. I'm seeing Indians hats out, and I'm like, oh, are you from Cleveland? No, I just like the Indians. Like, it's weird. People want to see what's going to happen with us. So I don't really want to get wrapped up in the optimism, because then I get disappointed. If I don't expect anything, then I can't be disappointed or let down. You're absolutely right, though, about the pitching being a problem, because if people look at the postseason like you're going to be going into it with some kind of...
What the fuck is that?
I have no idea.
It's music on my phone.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
We were running. It's all right. Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh my goodness, what was I saying? Oh, people act like when you get to the postseason, when you get into the playoffs, you have some sort of mega roster of superheroes, and like they get turbocharged to go into the postseason, and all of a sudden you're going to beat teams that you weren't able to conquer during the regular season. I don't know who they're going to come out and think that they are, but I'm not going to get too optimistic about anything. I'm not going to get sucked into the word magic once during this postseason. I'm not going to believe in anything until I'm actually watching it happen in front of my eyes.
But, I'll say this about them. I mean,
I want to, but I don't want to. You know what I mean?
If it were any other year, they would have lost that game, and they would have had to have gone back to Detroit.
Yeah.
And in what was, in essence, the fuck you game for the Tigers, because they're out of the whole thing, we would have lost that game and lost home field.
Exactly.
But, everything fell into place here. I was sitting there watching Donaldson get that hit that drove in the go-ahead run, and watching the Blue Jays beat the Red Sox. And I'm like, holy cow, we don't even have to play Detroit. We don't even have to go there. And the reason was because our bullpen held. Cody Allen came in and held. I mean, fucking Roberto Perez threw out that guy twice, who was 17 for 17 on the base paths. The only guy who's thrown him out is Roberto Perez, of all people, twice in a row.
He nailed him.
I know, but... And whenever he lifts the mask off, he is the goofiest looking motherfucker I have ever seen in my life. I mean, honest to God, he looks like he'd be like a fucking Disney character, and not a very bright one at that. I mean, he's got this. He looks like a big fucking Muppet or something. And he threw this guy out twice, and it's like, and he's in the game because Gomes is out of the game. But Gomes, when he's in the game, hits the 2-run home run that buys them 2/3 of their runs. Everything fell into place. And I'm like, wow. And Tomlin pitched good again. I mean, He only had 83 pitches thrown going into the 8th inning.
Yeah, Tomlin surprised me yesterday.
And, that's kind of the whole thing about they're coming up big when they need to. The thing that has me worried is how they've all played against these teams that are left. And they beat the teams that they were supposed to, and except for Minnesota, whatever. But they played everybody, and they beat the teams when they were supposed to. And now we come up to all these playoff teams where Boston has just pretty much owned Trevor Bauer's ass, and he's going out there to pitch against him the first game. But you know what? All of a sudden, he's looked really good the last few times out. And if you can get to the bullpen has been so solid.
For this team, Jim,
Yeah.
Home field advantage statistically so far this year has been extremely important. I mean, if we had to play a 7-game series with 4 on the road, no, I'd say no. But the Indians have been very effective in their home stadium, and they score many more runs in Progressive Field than they do anywhere else. So right off the bat, I feel good that we're starting at home. That's a good thing for this team. No, I don't think that we would be favored to beat Boston in a 7-game series. But, the thing that concerns me maybe more than anything, it looks like there are signs that Lindor has come out of his slump, but Napoli right now is lost.
Yeah,
Napoli, Oh my God! I mean, he doesn't
look defeated. He looks defeated. Like there's no party anywhere. I almost don't want to see any T-shirts or signs until the guy snaps out of it, because he just looks like he's already lost the entire postseason.
Popping up everything, uppercutting the hell out of his swing. No more line drives, jumping off his bat, and that's our 100 RBI guy. He's got to come to life if this team can score enough runs to stay with the Red Sox. He's got to be an integral part of this. Lindor, I think, is a good player, just playing more games in a season than he's ever played before. But his attitude is good. He seems to be coming around. That's good timing. Ramirez has been tremendous. The platoon in the outfield with Chisenhall has been good. Rajai Davis is an important component if he can get on base, because he can wreak havoc. Naquin has still managed to kind of balance his average around 300. And, the question there is the elevated fastball, whether he's going to be able to handle that. But, for Boston fans, Embrel, their relief pitcher, their closer, has been hideous in recent performances. And I heard Jerry Remy talking about this on New England Sports Network, that there is real concern on the part of the Red Sox right now that he is fighting a dead arm, and that their closer might not be in peak form, and that if you see him in an early game and he fails, that they're going to pull him out of the bullpen. In yesterday's game, they put Pomerantz in to pitch the ninth inning. They did not put Embrel into the game. So I consider that interesting, that there is a question about their closer right now.
Yeah, but we have to face the closer. We have to actually have we have to have offense. The first game at home, that they're actually going to be a full ballpark there. There's going to be electricity. There's going to be loud noise. And somehow I think that energy is going to help load Bauer to get in sync right away. He needs to just get into the zone and find his spot. But we need the offense to back them up. We can't get anywhere without any solid offense. If they're not going to score more than 4 or 5 runs in a game, it's always close, and it's always to the point where they're going to lose. You feel like once it gets past 13, 14 innings, it's a one game. They're going to blow it. If they can't score more than 1 run in a game, they're not going to do it in extra innings.
So that's a Thursday start. That's a Thursday start for the Indians. That'll be interesting to see what happens.
It'll be on while we're doing the show.
Really? What time does the game start?
It's 4:30 Eastern time, so it'll be on
You're
an hour
kidding.
after the start.
So I'm going to be looking out of the corner of my eye during the course of the whole program.
I'm going to turn my computer.
Oh, wait a minute. That's Thursday. We don't do a show on Thursday.
Oh, bummer. What sucks? We should do.
Michelle is doing shows on the side without you, Moo.
You don't want to know what kind of shows I'm doing. No.
Pole dancing shows.
Hey. Somebody wants to make it rain, they can.
And give it up for Chastity. Chastity, everybody.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. One of my program directors at the radio station had a girlfriend who is a stripper, and I'm trying to remember what her name was. But they're all like Chastity, or they all have. I'm trying to remember.
Mercedes.
What was Mercedes? That would be one. Yeah.
Tammy Lynn.
Crystal, Diamond, Ruby, Sapphire. Topaz.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Kind of cheap little gem. They're all the same.
I can't remember her name, but I mean, it was so funny the first time, and this is the kind of thing that can happen. This is Mr. Moohead's moment of the show, which is entitled "Why You Should Never Date a Stripper," and he brings this girl to a radio station party function, right? And if you dressed a stripper nice, she wouldn't be a stripper, right? But strippers, when they're not stripping, still dress like strippers. I don't understand it exactly. It must be genetic. It's like, I'm a stripper from birth. But whatever the hell it was, she's got her big fucking oversized melons hanging out, you know. And I'm looking at the guy like, where in the hell did you dig this thing up? And one of our sales guys comes over to me and and says to me, I saw her last night. And I said, you're seeing his girlfriend? He goes, no, I was at the strip club.
Oh my God.
I had her in my cab once.
But wait, it gets better. So here I am at this station party, and I'm going, wow, that's really kind of like, okay, it makes some sense. And he goes, but that's not the first time I met her. And I said, okay, I'm game. When was the first time you met her? And he goes, on the massage table when she was jerking me off.
Oh my God. Who told you that?
Girls got to make money. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm like, oh my God, this is why you should never dress. You should never, you know, because strippers, when they're not stripping, probably work at massage parlors in their off time. And, you know,
Maybe I was just jerking him off for fun.
I don't know. But the whole thing was, and if you knew this guy, he was like Herb Tarlick. I mean, that would not be, you know, at least if she was given a hand job to a really great looking guy, you know, but it's like, no. It was the plaid jacket.
Really great looking guys don't have to go to the massage room for that. Although
you don't even have to look at it though. You can just like face the other way. You don't even have to look at it if you just put him behind you in the table. I mean, not that I've ever done it, but I'm guessing it would be fairly easy.
It sure sounded like never mind. That's
I know what it sounded like.
Yeah.
But as a nurse, I'm telling you that there's ways to do things without looking people in the eye.
Well, I mean, and of course, he recognized her in a heartbeat, and especially when he shook her hand. I don't. It's like, I mean, so then everybody within like 15 minutes knew that it's like, oh my God, his girlfriend jerked off this guy. You know, and it's like,
that's so crazy. Who tells people that? Like, you look like a piece of shit because you had to go to a massage parlor and get your rocks off, dude. Like, why would you tell somebody that?
Well, because I mean, he felt comfortable about the fact that it was something that he had done some time before, and that she, that you know, it completed who she was, because we were like, God, you know, something funny about this whole thing, and yeah, there was.
The booby tassels didn't give it away at all. That was
yeah. It's like, one last thing before we get out of here. The Cleveland Cavaliers have signed a no guarantee contract to Tony Douglas, former New York Knick guy who they're looking at as a potential third point guard behind Kyrie Irving and Kay Felder because of Mo Williams' retirement. He may not make the team. He may make the team. He may be like the guy. Who was the guy last year? The guy who...
Canton?
No. The guy that we got at the end of the year who actually got a ring for his effort. He played like 4 minutes in the playoffs, but he played 4 really good minutes. I forget his name now. He's a guy who'd been in the league.
No, wait a minute.
No, that was the year before.
He had 4 good minutes.
Richard Jefferson?
No. This guy was
somebody that, there was somebody.
Help me in the chat room here. The guy, he had played for the Indiana Pacers at one time. He'd been with everybody. He was like 36 years old. He'd been around. I forget his name now. But yeah, that, you know, but they're not going to keep him around. So now it's Tony Douglas who might get that third point guard position. So Cavaliers doing what they can to try to shore up their situation. October the 7th is, I think, the first Cleveland Cavaliers preseason game. Don't expect to see LeBron James. If you're buying tickets to these events, LeBron is going to be sitting like he did the wine and gold scrimmage. They're not going to waste his legs in the preseason. No, not Brendan Haywood. Come on. Get real. Geez, some people just have no clue. But no, the Cavaliers... And you might see 20 minutes or less in terms of Kyrie Irving. So if you're going to these games, and I think 3 of the preseason games are going to be televised by NBA TV, so you'll be able to watch them at home for whatever that's worth. But you'll get your fix of Kay Felder, who's kind of an interesting player, and we'll see whether he can make a transition in his rookie year or not. So that's all I've got today.
Well, that's beautiful. I'm
sorry. Well, the camera changes now when I do it, so I can't even get away with it, you know?
See, I can't wait to find out who this the stripper was now. I'm thinking, I'm sure there's one of my friends that have somebody on that list. So.
Oh, I know what she called herself, what her stage name was. It's the other Destiny.
Oh, there
that
you
was
go.
Destiny. Like so stripper-esque.
Well, let's hear it for Destiny. Everybody put your hands together for Destiny.
I mean, Destiny, you know, is kind of like AIDS. You know, I mean, if that was my destiny, it would
Just
be
call
like the
yourself
end
herpes,
of my
lady.
world.
Hi, Piggy. I love you, Piggy. Piggy's sad because nobody's paying attention to him. Hi, Piggy.
I know what she was. She was emaciated because she was a drug addict, but with these implant breasts and Destiny. Oh my God.
There you go.
Bring them out, bring them out, bring them out, bring them out.
What the hell do you
when the barrel's in your mouth.
listen to,
Bring them out, bring them out. Hey. Bring them out, bring them out.
Jim's a motherfucking thug. Oh my God.
All right.
I know Jim's
That's our
a
song,
wigger. Jim's a wigger, and it's really it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that he would, you know, it's really not authentic. Jim, you got to drop this.
That's the song that they were playing when they were bringing out the starting lineup for the little high school volleyball team, not realizing it was all about the girls on the pole. And I would sit there quietly and just smiling, and they're going, "Bring them out, bring them out." Bring them out, and I'm like thinking, oh God, no, please don't do this. You don't realize what this song is about, okay? So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
All right, well, we're done. You got 12 minutes of bonus Moohead, but hey, I appreciate because the show goes over because with the help that I'm getting, you know, I don't even have to hardly work at all, which is really the nice part of this. And by the way, I think everybody who's watching the program notices how much sharper Michelle's show prep has been. So I wanted to mention that before we left because, you know, I always criticized her in the past, and not only for that, but for other things. the other things still where they haven't gone away, the punctuality thing, but still the show prep is very good. And so I wanted to say that you're doing, you know, really well.
Thank you, Dad.
Thanks, you guys, for jumping in, and we'll be back again on Wednesday. Jim, let me know what your availability is for future Browns post-game shows. If you're wondering, this season is following the same pattern as previous seasons. We've gone from 345 viewers to 160 to 120 in the last 3 post-game shows, only because the interest of hearing the same story weekend after weekend, it becomes less and less exhilarating. So, but still, if you put together what we did in the halftime of the postgame show, 200 views, I think it's good. And I think it's more than worthwhile that we continue doing these programs and follow this to its illogical 0-16 conclusion. Thank you. All right, guys, we'll see you. And Michelle, be here on Wednesday, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. So long to the 2 of you and to the 2 of you who are watching somewhere in Moo Moo Land. Until Wednesday, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.